What's up, guys? Thanks so much for stopping by the channel again. We have another continuation here in our series of Birthright faction reviews, and we've wrapped up the sort of major political entities of the Southern Coast, and now we kind of get to the end of a section here, and this will be similar for the other areas of Anweir, where they have a section basically labeled other domains, and we've seen these entries sort of sprinkled throughout the political entities that we've looked at, or the nations so far. But these basically represent like either a church, guild, or like a lone wizard that like controls actual sources, which count as a special type of holding in this game as well, or this setting as well, and these offer an interesting role-playing opportunity as well, but also something that you'll have to deal with as NPCs, depending on if you're ruling a political domain as well. But nonetheless, so you don't have to worry about like physical territory, and you can't at least initially have any of that, but your concern is a little bit more narrow and focused here, which can still provide interesting opportunities though, and you avoid some of the downsides or issues and pressures of dealing with sort of, again, a political or physical domain, and you just have to worry about like your narrow focus here. So like in the temple, for example, your effort should be expanding your church, collecting as much revenue as you can there, and then depending on what your church is essentially focused on, it might be launching a crusade, maybe trying to win over all of the worshipers in a given political domain if there's like a split between religions, or maybe going off on larger quests or things like that. So there's just all kinds of interesting opportunities there, and it still gives you the opportunity as well. Again, if you're launching, let's say, like other adventures or crusades or something like that, you still have the ability to field armies in many cases as well. And in some cases, some of these smaller, non-political domains often have access to military sources or forces that are larger than those of the political entity that they're occupying. So that being said, we're going to split this into basically 3 different parts here, just because otherwise it would be a little bit too long. So we're going to focus on the temples of the Southern Coast region. Some of those, again, have holdings in other areas, which we'll, again, come back to if their main entry isn't here. The second video in this little subsection will look at the guilds, and then the final one will look at the major source holders in the Southern Coast. So that being said, the major temple, bar none, in the Southern Coast is the Impregnable Heart of Haelyn, which is, again, that main lawful good god of the pantheon here. So is available for players, which is great, and a quick summary here, and it's a great sort of if you think this is like the right one for you to try and run as a player, right, it walks a delicate line between crusades and tolerance. So a lot of these gods have multiple different sects of the same religion, essentially. So as it says in the description here later, so there's other temples dedicated to Haelyn throughout the territories here, some far more aggressive, some much larger than this one. So you have often other religions to compete with, but also even sometimes other, sects or denominations of your same faith as well. So lots of interesting possibilities there. So in that sense, you do still mix a little bit of politics with sort of the actual business of running your temples. So that being said, the temple does have quite a few holdings here, and as you can see, most extensively in Rosestone, as we've seen, a little bit in Medoir, and then in Ilion as well. Now it does have some holdings in Osorde, which we'll see in basically when we cover the eastern coast. So we haven't covered that country yet, but quite a few here. There's sort of mostly mid-level, but you do have that one high-level one in Ilion, level 4. But certainly there's a little bit more work to do there, where you have some opportunity to raise those up a little bit. But again, you might have competition in those countries. You have to go back and review the situation there in those different territories, and know kind of what you want to accomplish. That being said, they've got a fair bit of regency generated that they generate and accumulate, or already have accumulated. So you're starting off on a pretty good foot there, and you have 31 gold bars sitting in your treasury, which is pretty massive for these southern coast nations. Most are certainly not this wealthy. So that is a great example of again sort of a non-political entity having access to in some way more resources than some of these actual countries do. So the region, if you choose to play as the existing leader of the church, is the high prefect, Hubert Armienden, is a level 11 priest with a bloodline of Andurus, major, and level basically 27 points of that. And he's lawful good. So a little brief background on him. This large, friendly man seems keen to expand his domain into Arenwe, again, which is that first in our series here of the Southern Coast, which we have seen has not really been sort of branched into yet. Let's put it that way. There's opportunity there, but again, you might have some pushback as well. But the Impregnable Heart of Haelyn, though by far the strongest temple on the southern coast, can't compare with the powerful temples of the Heartlands. Unlike many of Haelyn's temples, the Impregnable Heart has stayed fairly moderate. There are some that are far more aggressive and militant, and certainly not as tolerant. But acknowledging the need for other faiths. That being said, is the countering that, right, is the need for the temple to expand. So you've got a pretty good setup as is, but you do want to keep going and keep expanding and spread as much as you can without, again, sort of coming into any actual direct conflict like that, because again, that might drag in some of the actual rulers of the other countries, and they would potentially put a quick stop to any of that, and you don't want to hurt yourself that way. But there are, again, other sort of untapped areas where, depending on how you want to play that up and sort of the benefits of your particular flavor of worship of Haelyn, you could work in that avenue towards expanding your holdings and hopefully the reach of your faith. So that's the main one there. Nothing's listed as far as like any standing forces or anything like that, but again, it does mention here, right, that gives us that little tidbit, a fine line between crusades and tolerance. So if you did need to raise any kind of forces, what would you crusade against, and while still sort of keeping with that lawful good area? Well, we just recently covered the Spiderfell, so wouldn't it be interesting if you got everybody sort of across multiple countries here behind the idea of once and for all dealing with that? That could certainly bring flocks and flocks of followers to your faith there. So something to consider there. Others in the southern coast here that aren't necessarily 100% headquartered here, but there's Ruornil's Celestial Spell, so I go back and look at Meduir for that. There's also the Orthodox Imperial Temple of Haelyn, more to the west in Daimed, so again, you want to be careful there, but the Imperial Temple is one of the heavy hitters, and I do believe a larger, denomination of Haelyn worship. There is also the Eastern Temple of Nasiriye, just a little bit there, and that's what you kind of have to deal with in Arenwe to an extent, but Mirez might be hard to expand into just because of how essentially it being essentially an evil territory, essentially an outlaw pirate colony. There's also the Celestial Jewel of Saramie. Again, similar issue there because of Mirez. The worshippers of LOL. Again, more similar issues there. Probably won't convince people of the goddess that is sort of like the patron of thieves and stuff like that to suddenly switch to being lawful good followers. And similarly, the Voss of Mirez. So Mirez, I would honestly say, is just like a lost cause for you, unless that is your crusade and you want to clean up that country and show them how wonderful it would be to be lawful good worshippers of Haelyn. So that could be interesting there. The church versus sort of the outlaw pirate kingdom could be fun. Obviously, you'd probably want to borrow, beg, or build a navy, but you also have plenty of resources there. So lots of interesting bits there. The little stars there denote that these temples are also in the Heartlands. That's probably where we'll get the more in-depth description. But nonetheless, that represents a great one here. Fairly easy to start off with, and just you have some clear paths that you could take to expand the value and reach of your church there. So that will wrap it up for this one, guys. Let us know if you've actually run the Impregnable Heart of Haelyn. What have your success successes or difficulties been, or just failures? And then have you run any of the other smaller churches that are present in the Southern Coast? Let us know in the comments, guys. Be happy to hear from you and talk about it. Anything Birthright is obviously good, and the more attention we get on this awesome setting would be the better. So thanks again so much for stopping by, guys. We'll continue on again and wrap the last couple things up here on the Southern Coast before we move on to the West Coast. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks so much for stopping by. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.